Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're recording live from the Westmount Shul Lounge. We have a couple live participants here, a couple on the Zoom. So, Mirza Shem, thousands of thousands will Mirza Shem hear this later, somehow or another. We're in the second parak about the concept of eating. And we're in the beginning, the third section. The second paragraph has been talking about the thoughts we should have when we're eating and how that will elevate the food that we're eating. Thoughts of appreciating the taste, the thoughts you have the service to, you have the strength to serve Hashem, thoughts of thanksgiving to Hashem, to making a kal v'chomer. If this amount of connection to Hashem gives me pleasure, can you imagine a direct amount of connection with Hashem? And now we come to the fourth thought, which is a little bit trickier, and we'll have to tread carefully over here. We're on the left-hand side on page Lamed Gimel at the top, Gimel. The title is called Hisaneg al Hashem Yisparach Ba'achila, to delight with Hashem during the course of the eating. However, hakavana ha'ikoris, the main one, as footnote Mem Zayin spells it out. In other words, it's the real point of everything here. That's why it's the main one. It's the deepest one. It's the heart of all the concepts we're talking about. So this is the main. All the others are nice and important, but this one's going to come to the heart of the matter. He, which is, at the time when a person takes pleasure from the food, he has the sense that the pleasure that he is feeling is really the pleasure of Hashem's divine light. That is the actual pleasure that he is having. Which means, you have to, so to speak, explain it in your mind. You have to interpret it. You have to mindfully interpret. As Hatana Gagashmi, you are actually feeling a physical pleasure, but you have to translate that. What is it that I'm really feeling? La'ora Loki, this is divine light. Ulahargish eich hatanu gagashmi hu Loki, and you have to sense how this physical pleasure is really but only the divine light. So why am I tasting a physical pleasure? It's the divine light. Elishu malubash betam gashmi. It's enclosed in a physical taste. The physical taste is not the divine light. It's just telling you that there is divine. It's going to give a very good mashal very soon to help clarify this. Let's just go a little further. But that's how you have to, just like if somebody tells you something in Hebrew, you don't understand what he's saying. Let's say he did someone a big favor. Guy says, Todah. He says, what do you say to me? He said, thank you. Oh, okay. So every time I hear Todah, oh, thank you. But until you know it means thank you, you don't know what he's saying. You have to translate it. So not only do you translate language, you have to translate reality. You know how to translate it. How do you translate a good taste that comes out of food? The translation is, this is divine light, but it's enclosed. Because the taste that he senses in the eating, that is essentially the taste of the light. And not that it is the taste of the light itself, but this is how you taste the divine light. When the divine light is constrained in a physical reality, that's how the divine light tastes. Not that that's what the divine light tastes like, but when you take the divine light and you enclose it in a physical reality, that's how the divine light tastes. Don't worry, we're going to get to Marshall very soon. We'll make it clear. I know you're going to say, this sounds strange. And if you have that in mind, Then the pleasure will not make you into a physical being. The problem when you have physical pleasure is you're being hit with physical pleasure, and that's what you're relating to. And that can be terrible. It can make you a physical being, totally focused on physicality. But if you have the right thought that we're talking about, and this takes practice, and he's going to explain how you're going to do this. But the opposite is so you will purify the physicality. If you really understand that the physical taste really is the divine light enclosed. So immediately when you taste that pleasure, you'll incline your thoughts to focus on the spiritual pleasure of the light. And he will concentrate to feel in his eating the divine light in the food. And to enter cleaving inside his soul with this. And when you feel this way, you can reach a very strong level of enthusiasm. From the abundant cleavage that comes from the pleasure of the food. Because essentially the pleasure of the food is enabling him to taste the divine light, and therefore, and then he'll cleave to Hashem. Now he's going to give you the big mashal over here. And this is a mashal that's used by the Baal Tanya as well in many other areas. And if you're familiar with the Baal Tanya, you can see this right away, what's going on over here. And here's the question. This obvious question that's going to bother everybody. We're on Os Memches. If the questioner may want to ask, we're just fooling ourselves. What are you talking? At the end of the day, I enjoyed the steak. Let's not fool anybody. I had this amazing steak. It tasted great. And don't tell me I'm tasting the divine light. What's the divine light over here? I know what a steak tastes like. Especially smothered with gravy and caramelized onions. Oh, it's mamish, gewaltig. And that's what I'm tasting. I don't taste any divine light over here. So Sheila knows, where does that question come from? It comes from a skewed vision of reality. He's making a division between physicality and spirituality, as if they're two separate things that have nothing to do with the other. And that's the first mistake a person makes in life. That's not so. You have to know that the physical world is merely a garment for spirituality. It's just like when we say in Kabbalah Shabbos, until Yisbuchu Hashamayim v'sogel haaretz, the heavens will rejoice and the earth will sing. Those are the Rashi Tevis, the first four letters are Yud Hey Vav Hey. God's reality is when the heavens and the earth are both being appreciated at the same time. It's not two separate worlds. But you think there's two totally separate worlds. There's a physical world, a spiritual world. I'm tasting a steak, that's the physical. You want to tell me there's some spiritual hiding inside of there? Maybe, but not what I'm tasting. That ain't spiritual. And here's the mashal. It was like a sleeper. You saw all these notes. Whoa. Let's say you're touching your friend's garment. Okay? You feel like you're touching the fellow's body. You give somebody, who is in your, your bubble. A huge, and the Baal Tanya says the example much more. He says, imagine the king who has his purple raiment and many, many layers of clothes. When the king's body stops here, and then he's got clothes like this thick. Okay, this thick. And then you and the king just give a big hug. Have you touched the king at all? No. Do you feel his embrace? Yes, but he didn't touch the king. That's how you have to understand what Dvekas is with Hashem. You're gonna say, okay, listen. My side I get, imagine if the king hugs you, you're gonna say, I mean, the king didn't hug me, he didn't take off all his clothes. King didn't hug me. I felt the hug from his coat.
Is it safe?
From his sweater.
Is it safe to use the analogy that if we can't hug Hashem because we would die instantly? It's almost like safety suit.
Let's not get to dying and all that stuff. Let's just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it simple. That's why I'm giving this example here. Okay? You don't have to be touching his body to be actually hugging him. So when you have a physical pleasure, the pleasure is the physical pleasure, but it's only it's only a garment for the divine light that's inside of it. It's not like the steak is something separate. It's not that. Is the coat different from the king? Two separate entities? No, it's the king's body fills into it. It's made to measure. You're feeling something, right? But the king ain't touching you. And let's play it further. Let's say the king's face is covered. Everything's covered. They have these pictures. These people who are what do you call it? What do you call it? The people, the doctors in the hospital, we have a name for them now. The essential workers, whatever, on the front lines, whatever you want to call them. Does any patient touch the doctor? You may not even see the doctor. Some of them got spacesuits like crazy. Remember there was this picture they had a while ago, a doctor hugging a little baby with COVID, an adult. Remember, there was a famous picture. Went around like crazy.
They wear name tags now with the picture.
Right, whatever. But are you going to say that he didn't give you a hug? He didn't help you out? I don't see anybody. It was, you know what it was? It was this magic medicine came out of nowhere. I didn't see anybody. It'd be foolish. Because the magic medicine came from a person on the other end giving it to you. Just because you can't see him doesn't mean it didn't happen at all. And that's how you have to understand that steak is a direct manifestation of God. It's not two separate things. That steak would not be without God. And Hashem is giving you that same hug. And that's how a hug with Hashem tastes when it's enclosed in a steak. In this world, that's how it comes across. No different than the king hugs you through his purple raiment, and that's the hug. And nobody would say they didn't get a hug from the king. That's, you have to translate it. It's not like this is it. This is Hashem's divine light as it can be internalized in a physical realm. And what you have to do is, you've got to really sink that thought in. That inner thought has got to be firmly rooted, implanted, that it becomes a physical feeling. And to translate it, this is the spiritual pleasure. When it is enclosed in the physical reality. This is now the steak is not spiritual. Let's not make a mistake. It is completely physical, but it's the manifestation of 100% divine. This is what divine light is, as it translates. Just like Todah. Todah really means thanks. You just don't understand it. You don't understand why Todah means thanks. Todah is from the root of Hoda'ah, of appreciation and this. You have no idea. You just know it says thanks. So when Hashem says the steak tastes good, that's Hashem's divine light hugging you. That's it. And that is the divine light hugging you. It translates itself in a physical way. Just because it translates in one way doesn't change the reality of that. And that you have to get your mind attuned to that. Next side. Therefore, the second when you're hungry, how does that translate? You have to learn it. You have to learn now. Again, they have this thing called, what's it called? Duolingo. It's an app. Yeah. My wife is trying to learn Hebrew a little better. So she, every day, 15 minutes.
Is it good? Yeah. Is it good?
You got to ask her. You don't ask me. So you're learning this lingo. And also, you go to Israel, you don't know anything. You don't know a word of Hebrew. You just walk, it's like Chinese. You don't know nothing. You know if the person's being nice to you, not being nice to you. Generally, you think Israelis are not nice to you because they talk with a certain cadence. For North Americans seems very, not easy. But you just don't know the language. You just don't know the language. If you understand the language, that's just the way the language rolls. You could say you love a person in a way that seems like you hate him, but that's the way that the language translates. There's nothing against the language. It's just the way it goes. So you got to translate this world. It's a language. It's a language of this Lashon Kodesh. We don't know the translation of Lashon Kodesh. You think it's a steak. It's not. It's God's divine light giving you the taste of a steak, the way it manifests in this world. Even language itself, the word thank you. Does the word thank you really mean anything? It only means something if there's a meaning behind it. I acknowledge you did something for me. Good. Now, if you tell a 4-year-old to say thank you, you're not getting real thanks because he doesn't have anything behind it. He's just repeating it like a parrot. But when somebody has thanks and says thanks, you understand the thanks, then the connection is a full connection. If you understand that Hashem is saying, I want to show you how much I love you, how close I am to you, how much I want to give you pleasure. And it's all my divine light. But the divine light translates in a way that you can, in this world, understand it this way. Then that's how you have now translated it, this foreign language called Dveikus language. So suddenly when you're hungry, how does that translate? You have to learn to translate every feeling, every emotion, everything that happens in this world. You have to learn a new language. And many people have difficulty learning new languages because they're stuck in their place. If a person's a very a control person, it's hard to learn a new language because you want to be under control. Control is what I know. Let the other person learn my language. You have to go a lot of work to learn. That's why some people have a lot of trouble learning how to use computers. It's a whole new language. And if you're not going to give in, you have to be mevatel yourself to that language. No? Marshall, just a simple thing, right? My wife is unhappy with her computer on the what do you call it? She sends the emails in the text email. The text is too small. It's like, it's like 8 points. She says, can you make it bigger? I said, sure, not a problem. So I just go to 24 points, nice and big. She said, how'd you do that? Don't worry about it, dear. Now you have a good point. Right, but she doesn't know how am I able to do it because I know the computer language. And guess what? To know any computer language, you have to take the time to be mevatel yourself to the computer. You have to nullify yourself to the computer. And then, of course, after this, it was way too big. People are complaining. I don't know why I send 24 all the time to everybody. Doesn't come out too big, but fine. So show them how it's. Listen, I don't have time to show you. I'm just going to do it, and I do it in 1 second. So how did you? I don't have. Dear, I love you, but I don't have time for this. Now what's the difference? How did I know how to do this? I said, you know what? I'm going to have to work hard to figure it out. Right? You have to Google. You Google. This computer script, text, email, this. You have to make a lot of it. And it says this. What you do is you go over here, you scroll down to this. Who wants to spend the time doing that? Just give me the answer. Show me how to do this. But you got to live the computer. You got to understand how the computer thinks. And it thinks to the lowest common denominator. But it's funny, computers, they're meant for the people who are stupid, who are intelligently stupid. That's the problem. And you have to learn that. It's a language. It's a language. And what if you don't want to learn the language? If you're not prepared to be mevatel yourself to this computer, you're never going to learn the language. You're never going to be using it properly. You look at all these things and they mean things. These icons mean things. I'm looking right now at the icons. Oh, I got a little dot and a little wavy thing here, a little semi-arc here. Oh, that's Bluetooth connection. Who said it's Bluetooth? I'll say I learned it. And then when I look at that, I see Bluetooth. Right there. Right. Is that Wi-Fi or Bluetooth? Wi-Fi. Oh, this is Bluetooth. This is Bluetooth. This is 11. And this is volume. Who said? I had to bother to learn it.
Just learn a
I have to
computer.
say, that's the dumbest thing. I would have just wrote speaker. But right Wi-Fi, for goodness sake.
Learn a computer.
That's the way it is. So Hashem, just say hug. No, it's a steak. It's no different. But you have to be prepared to learn it. And if you're not prepared to learn it, you just kick the computer, get angry, and you don't go anywhere. So that's the same thing. You have to understand the language. So now there's a language called hunger. How do you translate it? A lot of people will translate it in many different ways. One is, I'm hungry and unhappy. The longer I'm hungry, the longer I'm unhappy. I am hungry and grouchy. The longer I'm hungry, the more I'm grouchy, the more I feel disrespected, that I have to wait in the line and other people are ahead of me. Yeah? How do you translate when the computer font is too small? I don't like it. I don't like having to squint. I don't want to make the effort. I just want it, poof, to be bigger. So what do you got to do? You got to understand the language of hunger. What is that? That's a code. That's an icon. What's hunger? The language of. This is all what Hasidus is. Learning how to translate the world into what's emes and not be fooled by things that are true. And when you're hungry, it means, be'emesh, it's not just physical hunger. It's a manifestation. It's a complete manifestation of something spiritual. But this is how it's enclosed in this world. You're hungry to receive life from Hashem. And to delight in that. That's what it really means. When your stomach is growling, it's saying the following. I'm starving to get nourishment from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to enjoy that nourishment from Hashem. But it's enclosed in the need to eat physical food. It's not two separate things. It's not that Todah is one thing and thank you is another. It's not that this icon is three little half circles and a Wi-Fi is something else. This is Wi-Fi. So the hunger is a hunger to be nourished from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. And then when you eat it, that's the taste of being nourished by Hashem's light. And don't make any mistake and think it's anything else. Now, just like if you hug the king, who would be stupid enough to think that the clothes hugged him? Now, let's say, again, it's COVID-19, and the king loves his following. King dresses up, your mama, you don't know who it is. You don't know who it is. But someone's telling you it's the king. He said, don't look like the king. I'm telling you it's the king. Trust me. Now, the king gives you a huge hug. Now, what are you going to tell everybody? You know what? The clothes gave me a big hug. Would you be foolish enough to say that? Or you say, you know how lucky I am? In the middle of Corona, the king came to me and gave me a hug. Prove it. Do you have a picture of the king? No, but the person who works for the king told me that the king was the king. Well, did you feel anything? Yeah, I felt a hug. But I know it's the king. I don't. I have to just trust. Now, would the person be so foolish now to run after clothes and start hugging clothes randomly? Because that felt so good.
Vegas.
You can imagine these guys Meshuggah. Just run over. Let's say this was a coat. What are you doing? It's just a coat. So now you're looking at that steak. That steak's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. And you're just running with the steak? Are you out of your mind? Don't you know what's really happening over here? This just all it takes is training. So if you have difficulty with languages, maybe you're going to have difficulty with this. People have difficulty in understanding what a computer wants. Remember how we started off? You have to want it. If you don't want it, you're not going to make the effort. Right? But it's as clear as day. That's what it is. This is the fourth point. He's saying this is the machshava that a person has to have when this is happening. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that concept before we march further? It's a very important concept. Yeah.
Is that everything? I mean, it's so
Louder.
A prophet is feeling Hashem. He's having steak all day, every moment.
Well, when he's in a state of prophecy. But you can feel that way all day long because there's so many beautiful things in this world.
So
You're looking at every Jew. You're looking at the Tzelem Elokim. You're looking at the Shekhinah. I got 7 reminders of the Shekhinah in this room. If I really, really was thinking hard, I'd be so happy seeing 7 Shekhinahs here. Right? You just have to know how to look at it. That's all. Yeah.
So are we saying the mechanism is the neshama wants to get close to Hashem, and then the stomach gets activated, the physical part of the body?
What? The neshama wants to cleave to Hashem,
So it's time for
and there's
Hashem.
manifestations of Hashem that you can cleave to, and that's the light of Hashem that is evident in every single thing in the creation. It's not limited to a steak.
Neshama is okay.
You're breathing. There's air inside of you. Let's do a simple act of faith. Oh, what a hug! What a hug! What do you mean? What do you mean? Do you know there are people with COVID-19 who can't do that? I just gave a hug. I took a breath. Oxygen. Do you understand what oxygen is? Hashem is putting the oxygen in yourself. You know, those who have a little bit of, what do you call it, sleep apnea, you can, just for that second, you're choking. For that second, you think you're gonna die for a second, but you know it's just sleep apnea. And then when you clear that out, you go, geschmack. You know, you don't have to. You could be in a concentration camp and be filled with dveikus. There's so many things you could thank Hashem in a concert. We don't wish it on anybody. But you were able to appreciate the air. The Nazis couldn't take the air away from you till they shot you. They could take food. They can't take air away from you. And you could see the manifestation. You see the manifestation of God in that Russia. And all these things. You could see that. You just have to know how to translate the language. That's all you have to do. All. But it needs the mind. The mind has to be understand there is a language of life that's there. That's all comes from the Aleph base. The Aleph base creates all these realities. Whether it's a steak, any pleasure, and the world is just filled with pleasures. There's no way you run out of pleasures in this world if we would just be alert to our surroundings that are with us over here. Okay, shkoyach everybody. That's what you got to think about when you're eating it. Now, tomorrow he's going to talk about the bottom-up method versus the top-down method. So we're going to get more into detail in these points. Shkoyach everybody. Amazing to learn Torah.